Hi folks, we're going to do an installation today of our mini V-Track. The greatest feature of it is it's very small dimensions. It only takes up 2 inches of room over the top of the door. And make sure and download our installation instructions off of our website in the product listing. Everything we're going to be giving you today for measurements and everything is in there. We're going to be making this installation specific to this door size, which is 2 1/4 thick. What that means it's going to require is a little bit of a spacer right here that's going to go behind the track so that the door has enough clearance to clear the trim around the opening and slide freely. Right now we're going to put this spacer up so that it is the bottom of the spacer is right at the top of the door and not behind the door, it's only behind the track. The dimensions that we're going to be working with are the gap underneath the door to the top of the door in order to figure out how high to set the spacer off the floor. In this case, we're working over carpeting, and we need to think about how much the floor guide is going to compress the carpeting when it's attached down on the ground. We've measured in about 5 feet from the end of the track where we expect the track to go. We're putting up a 5-foot door with a 10-foot track. And so I got a mark right here at the 5-foot mark. This floor guide is going to be centered left to right on the track and front to back underneath the door. And so it's going to mount down here like this. And we want about a 1/2 inch gap under the door because the floor guide is 1 inch tall. And so the bottom of the door is a 1/2 inch off the floor. That means this floor guide is going to go up into the slot in the bottom of the door by a 1/2 inch. So we're going to take that 1/2 inch plus the height of the door, and that will be the bottom of this spacer, and we'll mount that to the wall next. So what I've done here is I've made a mark right here on the wall for where the top of my door is going to be. That's the bottom of this spacer that I put. You don't have to put this spacer on the wall in every application. It's just in this particular application we have a particularly thick door and we have trim around the opening that's going to get in the way, so we had to bring the track off the wall a little bit for it to clear. What I'm doing here is I put 1 screw in it to hold my ledger board up. I put my level on it, made it level, and then I'm going to go back with a stud finder and I'm going to mark all my locations for my studs, attach this to the wall with some wood screws ahead of time. And once I've marked all my locations with the studs, then I can put my track up against here, transfer the marks onto my track, and be able to pre-drill the holes in the track for all the lag screws that are going to mount the track to the wall. So now we have our spacer board, ledger board attached to the wall. It's level. One thing to note in this old house is the door opening is not straight and level. And so it might look out of level, but we really want the track to ride level. You have to be careful with floors that aren't level because you might rub with the bottom of your door on one part in the floor and then be too high on another part. What we've done is we've gone and put screws in that are going to be hidden behind the track everywhere where there's a stud. We're going to transfer that point to this track, then take the track out and pre-drill it. One thing to be extremely careful with on this track is both legs look about the same distance. You have to make sure you put the correct leg to the wall, and that leg is the one that's furthest from the stop bolt holes, which are the pre-drilled holes in the end of the track. There should be a sticker on your back of the track that says mount this face to the wall, and also reference the cross-section drawings in the installation instructions for more information on this. So right now I'm going to go transfer the stud locations to the track, and then I can drill those holes. So now we're going to drill the holes into the face that is attached to the wall. And remember and double check that you got the right face that you're drilling these holes into. It's the face that's the furthest from this stop bolt hole. The stop bolt is closer to the bottom of the track, which is the trough that the wheel rides in. What we're going to do right now is we have a punch. It's kind of makes it easier to start your drill bit if you have a little indentation to start it in. So we're going to take it and a hammer, put it on here, just punch like that. Now that we've punched where our holes need to be drilled, we can use a 1/4 inch drill bit and it goes right through the steel very easily. So here what we're doing is we're mounting the track to the wall. We've gone ahead and put the middle lag in to hold the track up there because it's easier with only one person here to do that. The top of the track is the gap underneath the door plus the height of the door plus 1 5/8 inches is to the top of the track. That's not the top of the wheel, that's not to your mounting lag hole, that's to the top of the track, this point right here. And we went ahead, sunk that lag, installed that, and then if you notice that this thinner track, this is our lighter track, this is our mini V-track, it's a little bit lighter gauge steel than our heavy duty V-track. It has a little bit of flexibility in it and it can move. And so what we have to do is put our level on it, especially on these long links. This is a 10-foot track, in order to make sure it's good and straight once it's installed. I put my level on here, and then I can go back to my pre-drilled holes that I have, line it up with a stud, check my level, straighten the track, and pre-drill my hole in the wall. And then when I go to mount my lag, everything is already straightened out. Okay, even though this is our lighter duty track, I wanted to show you how strong it is. What it is we don't even have 5 feet of lags put in here. We didn't put the middle lags in, and so it's not even attached to the wall. And we're going to do some pull-ups on here. Well, some of us were going to. Okay, before we install the door on the track, what we need to do is make sure our floor guide's in place. You want to make sure that it's, once again, centered left to right, underneath the track, and front to back. Normally, if you're using a single floor guide, it's centered on the bottom of the door. And you find the center line of your wheel, which if you didn't mount a ledger board, is 1 5/16 inches from the back of the track to the center of the channel. In this case, we've added the ledger board, so we need to add that distance off the wall. In this particular instance, we're 2 inches. So we're going to come down here on the floor guide on the floor and measure 2 inches off the wall and mount it to the floor. The door will ride over the top of this floor guide. We need to cut a slot in it that's 1/4 inch wide, 9/16 inch deep in the bottom of the door. We can do this with a slot cutter bit on a router. Normally you need to adjust the distance from the back of the hanger plate to the center line of the wheel to be half the thickness of the door. That puts the wheel centered directly over the top of the door. Then using these plywood spacer blocks, you can set the height of the wheel in relation to the top of the door. It's very critical that you don't change this distance because otherwise it won't work with the track. This is 1/4 inch. The distance from the edge of the door to the edge of the hanger can be adjusted depending on where you want the door to stop in relation to the end of the track. If you want the edge of the door to be the end of the track, then you use this block, which is 1 1/8 inches wide, to set the distance from the edge of the door to the edge of the hanger. And then using a quick clamp, you can go and clamp the hanger to the door and then use the hanger itself as a guide to drill your holes. So right here we're using a 3/8 bit. We're drilling right through the center of the hanger into the door. Then we'll take our bolts, which are 1/2 inch longer than the thickness of the door, and place them in the door, into the hanger, and tighten the acorn nut on the face of the door. Now we're going to feed the door onto the track. You can sometimes come over the front if you want to. You can take the hanger plates off and re-bolt them on after you set it under the track, or if you have one end exposed, you can feed it onto the track that way if you don't have the stop bolt holes already installed. So let's see how this goes on. Now we're going to install our stop bolts. This keeps the wheels from coming out of the end of the track. The 5/16 button head bolt comes in from the bottom through the channel, and the acorn nut goes over the top, and just tighten the two together. So this is a very big, heavy door. It's mounted and it's working well. Look how heavy it is, and yet how secure the mounting is. When I slam it, it doesn't come off. So the floor guide's capturing it down there, and the end stop's working correctly.